and welcome to the Ratchet Christian. I am so excited to have a special guest here. Would you like to introduce yourself, or Val can introduce you?
Go ahead, love.
So this is Daggy, my fiance now.
Hey.
Yeah, he recently just graduated from Cal State Long Beach in computer engineering.
Okay, come on.
And we recently just got engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So as Ma wanted to do a video, just asking him a couple questions about I've already shared a little bit with you guys about just being Christian and purity and those challenges for me personally, and just how God has grown me and given me wisdom in terms of relationships. But now you guys are gonna have Daggy's perspective.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm gonna let Asmal ask a couple questions or share her thoughts.
So this is for the guys, because Val and I both know that we have male followers, and we've done this whole relationship series, and we've given the perspective from women, but I know there's not just women that watch our channels, and so guys, we just want to know that we see you, we hear you, and this is just an opportunity for you guys to get a guy's perspective on things as well, and even for the women as well. It's just for everybody, so that we're having a healthy, balanced conversation about relationships and godly relationships. So we're just going to jump right into it for the sake of time. The first question I have for you, Daggy, is how do you stay firm in purity when other Christian couples around you are compromising in this area? And even non-Christian couples, but it's in a world where it's expected to be intimate with your partner before anything, even before marriage. How do you stand firm in that, and as a man of God? Yeah. We're just jumping right in with our questions. Sorry.
That's okay. There's a couple things that we talked about beforehand, before we even decided to be in a relationship. Is we had core beliefs that we believed in, both of us, that we decided on, and one of the core beliefs were we wanted to wait for marriage, and that could be proven here and there, but for us it felt like a promise to God that we are going to stand in this position and honor God in that. And when we do that, work on other things, work on our communication, work on a lot of other things that increase our intimacy other than just the physical aspect of that. How did we do it, or how did we stay pure?
And I know it's challenging, you know what I mean? Especially in the atmosphere, and it's I'm sure some guys gave you flack about it, really, you're weird, you're gonna wait, nobody's ever gonna be able to do that. At least we know how our coworkers, for my experience of being with Val, they're Val, whatever, no, you're not waiting, you're a grandma, all these things, and I'm I can only imagine how guys must be about it.
Yeah, my close friends know that I am a Christian, and I am pretty serious about being a man of God. And a lot of times it's very difficult, but a lot of times it's been about relying on God and allowing the ability of the Lord to help us. Not only that, but also being logical about it.
Yeah.
But we can't really pray about it and allow God to help us, and also spend a long time in the house, and all of that stuff. So we try to eliminate those situations where we may be tempted, and
let's cuddle and have Bible study.
So that's
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so what logically works for us, and also be in prayer, and we allow the Lord to work in other aspects of our life, and when we want to spend time, be in the public area, all of that adds up to making it slightly easier. But yes, it is difficult, and as far as it's impossible for guys, I don't think it's impossible for godly men.
Yeah, tell them. Ooh, you hear that? Y'all catch that? It's not impossible for godly men. Maybe for regular guys, but godly men, Because I've literally, we've had co-workers make the argument that men are like, or people in general, we're like animals, you know, and it's like, if you're an animal, we're like animals, we're supposed to have all these urges, and it's like, what? I've just heard the most ridiculous things about it, you know?
I've shared with some of you.
We do have those urges, and we are supposed to have those urges because that's very much natural.
Right.
Again, the exercise of being Christ-like or godly is allowing the Lord to transcend the manliness. So I think that's what the Bible says as well, you know, killing the flesh every day and living for the Lord. So I think part of the challenge is that.
Yeah.
Is allowing the Lord to work in that and allowing the Lord to challenge you and raise you up in that. So what seemingly impossible could be possible through it.
Yeah.
It may seem a cliche, but that's really what it is.
Right.
But we talk about it all the time. If it wasn't, you know, the meditation time we have, the prayer, the Bible studies that we spend with the Lord, it is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Because the time that we live in is not the time of our parents, where a lot of our interactions are controlled. A lot of the information that we see, a lot of the things that we're exposed to kind of drive us through that direction. So your coworkers may be right. It is nearly impossible to go through that and come out the other side as a healthy relationship. But again, what we're attempting to do is to be in a godly Christian relationship, meaning that I'm trying to love her as Christ loved her, and she's trying to love me as Christ loved me, which means unconditionally and without any ties or conditions. So that's what we're attempting to do. And every day, although we fail and we're not very good, the Lord fills in the blanks, and that's what we've been experiencing the past some years, you know.
Yeah. And I love that the fact that you had a conversation about it ahead of time so that you could be on the same page, and Val had addressed the same thing, where it's like from the very first date you guys knew that this is what I'm pursuing, that if we do get involved it's something godly, and then you guys took steps to execute that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to pray and lean on Jesus, but also come over and spend the night, you know, like there's a scripture that says, you know, resist the devil and he will flee from you, you know, like flee youthful temptations. It's like literally you have to run the other way, you know, and I from what it sounds like, it's like you guys were actually being intentional not to do that, and continue to, even though you're engaged. It's not like, okay, let's relax, you know, it's like, no, like we're going to fight for this all the way up until the altar, you know, so. And I think it makes all the more of a difference if you're actually really pursuing Christ, the both of you, because it's going to be hard if the one person isn't, or one person wants it more than the other, you know what I mean? But it seems like you guys are both equally yoked in that you want to honor God no matter what, you know, through the ups and downs, through the fails and the trials and tribulations. It's like you were equally yoked in that, and so that's why it's possible.
Yeah, and
also we found out that there are levels to that, you know. Sometimes I'm weaker than she is, and sometimes she's weaker than I am. All we know is one of us has to be stronger at one point in time in order to do that. So we have found that happening as time went on. As you know, when I'm like struggling, she's like deep in prayer and all of those things at that specific time, and I found her to be more stronger, and vice versa. When she's struggling, I am in that area in my life. So,
I think that's helpful to know, because I know me particularly, I have in my mind like, well, the man should always be leading, you know, like I'm a person who's like strong in my faith, and if I'm stronger than you in my faith, then maybe it's not supposed to work. So it's like helpful to know that it's gonna be a balancing game, you know, where sometimes you're gonna be the one that's like holding on to Jesus for that person, and sometimes it's going to be the other way around. So just knowing that just because it like wavers sometimes does not mean that you're not equally yoked, you know.
And I think I don't know if I mentioned in the last video with me, but I think for us it's been like, you know, I think like we share, like sometimes we re-strategize as we notice, like I'm like, oh, okay, this is more tempting than I thought, you know, and we're like, okay, let's make sure we're more in public spaces and around friends and stuff like that, and we're intentional about that. But I think for me, it was very humbling. You know, I'm like, Jesus, I thought I was like so strong. So I think for you guys that are entering into a relationship, just if you feel like you've been really strong in that area, and I shared with you guys already in the other video, this has been one of the hardest battles for me, but I'm like, Jesus, I'm clinging on to you, you know? And for me, it was just like, Lord, look, God really humbled me. I'm like, dude, I was really holding on to like my strength. And then Jesus has really shown me how much I really need to lean into him in this area. And I just want to tell you guys that, like, don't enter it with pride, enter it with humility, and just knowing that you need God to continue, you know, just being strong in that area, you know, for each other and for God.
Like talking specifically to me, and I don't need to be attacked right
Oh,
now.
I'm
No, I'm
sorry.
joking. No, I'm joking. No, but it's like it's true, because it's like, of course, like you can be celibate when you're single, like it's easy, you know, but it's like it's gonna be different when you're with somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. You know, it's gonna be a completely different story. So it's good to know that.
Because I've dated as a Christian before, like I've had one boyfriend before Daggy. And I definitely was not, you know, struggling as much as I have, you know, with him. So I think it's because of where my feelings are at, and how much I do know that, like, I want to be with him. And the Lord's just like, you know, everything has its timing, Val, you know, so I'm just being honest with you guys. And I think that's been something for me that I was just like, what? Oh, Val, what? You know, so for me, yeah, it's just like been something I really had to lean in with God. So yes.
Yeah. So
and I think that you would agree with me as well.
Yeah. So to move on to the next question, I want you to explain to us this concept of being ready. There's just so much to say that I like didn't have anything to say for a second, because it's like the concept of like, oh, I'm not ready. Like when a guy says like, I'm not ready, or there's like this meme that I see all the time. It's like, you'll never be good enough for a man that's not ready. You know, you can be the right person at the wrong time for somebody who's not ready. And so there's just this like unknown like concept that men have about being ready. I'm like, okay, so when are you going to be ready, and how long is it going to take for you to get ready, and when is it also a scapegoat for you actually really don't want to settle down with me, and if the next person comes along, you be ready for them. And so I really don't understand it, but it's like, as a man, like, can you talk to us about this concept of being ready? As you can see, I have like my feelings about it, but I'm gonna be totally subjective right now. No bad feelings about it at all.
Oh yeah, I feel neutral.
Yeah, so neutral.
The concept, that's kind of a tricky subject to talk about. With my limited experience, you have to think about it from a couple different perspectives. So are you talking about being ready for a relationship, or for an actual one-on-one monogamous relationship? Are you talking about being ready to get married? Are you talking about being ready to be engaged? So you have to give me something specific. So are you saying
can you talk about first being ready for a relationship? Because there's that saying sometimes, not even like a saying, but it's like a lot of girls are waiting for guys that are ready to be in a relationship, and then after that is ready to like get married. It's like, I know friends of mine personally who have been in relationships for 5, 6, 7, 8 years waiting for a guy to be ready to marry them, you know. And girls who have been talking to guys for 6 months, 7 months, a year, waiting for them to be ready for a relationship, you know. So I think just to talk about those two.
Okay, so as far as to get into a relationship, to be ready to be in a relationship, that could be a few different things. For me, I was clear. I was talking to my close friends whenever I met Val, and I was clear about it. If this girl is something that I'm looking for, I'm willing to pursue it. Otherwise, I'm not willing to waste any time. So that was my view on the situation. As far as being ready, it could be a couple different things. It could be genuine. It could be that the guy is really not ready to be in a serious relationship. The time in his life doesn't allow him to be in a serious relationship. He may be, he may have a lot of things on his plate. So it could be both of them. A lot of the times you see this concept spoken of guys, but a lot of the times women do that as well. They're not ready to be 100% committed in every way. But
I have found in my own personal experience, when I have been like, I'm not ready, it's because I didn't really want to be with that person. And so I feel like because of I know why I would do it, I feel like when I hear that, it makes me think, oh, you just don't actually want to be with me. Because that's what I use it for. I'm like,
yeah. We, in my personal experience, it's good to see that based on what you experience, but also it's not good to decide based on one aspect or one view. So if you're saying you're not ready because you don't actually want to be with that person, you just want to talk to them, there are also other signs that indicate that. So it's not just that you are not ready. A lot of the times there are other things that you pick up on that he actually may not be that interested in me. He may not be interested in me, and from a perspective of a long term. We're cool now. We have great chemistry. We vibe, but he's not interested in me in the long term. So specify what you want. A lot of the things that made it so easy for me to communicate with Val is she was very clear. She was straight on. Like I didn't have to.
And she talked about that in the last video. She was just like straight up, like.
I don't have to interpret her whatever she was saying. I don't have to like decipher whatever she's trying to tell me. If she is a specific way, or if she's feeling a specific type of way, she's straight about telling me, and I'm the same way. So if you set that standard at the beginning of the relationship, I feel like guys would follow that, or guys would at least respect that. You get me? So like. Well, that's what I try to do is set that standard. I'm going to be clear with you in what I want to do. I'm not trying to play games. We were trying to pursue, and we are still trying to pursue a godly relationship, and we're talking about from a perspective of a godly relationship. So I'm not trying to waste time on anyone. I know I'm not trying to waste their time on me if we're not compatible with one another. If our goals are not aligning in the same direction. And the other thing is, if we're really talking about from a perspective of a godly relationship, you should involve God in it. You get me? It's not navigating. If a guy said is not ready and you guys are both godly people and you're pursuing a godly man, you guys should pray about it and find out. If you guys are going to be ready or not right for one another. So the saddest thing you can do, or not the greatest thing you can do, is stay in a relationship that is not going to go anywhere. And that's the scariest part. That scared the crap out of me. Usually is, like you waste a lot of years. And time, and but with the person that is not right for you from a spiritual perspective, So a lot of the things as godly people, as I strive to do, even though I'm very bad at it, and the Lord's grace is always there, is to live according to the instruction of the Lord. And if that instruction is not to be with Val, to stop it. That may be super hard, but that's what we're striving to do as godly people, right? So we may not be particularly good at it, specifically talking about me, but we lean on the grace of the Lord, and we lean on His mercy, we lean on His power, to allow us to decipher these things. And that's one of the main things is to get into a relationship. I knew I was ready because I felt within my heart that this was going somewhere, and she's not just any whatever girl that I was talking to. As far as going into marriage goes, for us, we kind of knew a while back. I knew a while back that I wanted to make her my wife and I wanted to ask her to marry me, but the circumstances did not allow it. Some financial, other the kind of commitment that we had. She was deep in school, and I was in school, and we were trying to figure all these things out. And we were saying, okay, look, we have to set A, B, and C before we go. We knew we were eventually going to head in that direction. We were clear about that, again, direct about that, but the timing was not right at this moment. So a lot of, if you're in a godly relationship, a lot of it could be that timing. And you have to be patient, and you have to allow the Lord to work with you and work with one another so that you are ready to enter that space. So that could be the case.
I think that's that's really good, and most of my experience has been with dating guys that were like in the world. And so I know that it's different when you're dealing with the believer, especially when it comes to clarity and wasting your time, because deciphering whether somebody's ready or not is something just as simple as a prayer. You know, God, if this is your will, let it come to pass. If it's not, then take this person away. You know, and I didn't used to pray those type of prayers, but now that I have, it saved me a lot of time and a lot of wondering, like, well, is this person like not ready, or are they just using it as an excuse? And it makes me think about the time that Val had actually had called you, like, hey, like, can I get your advice like on Ismail's situation? And I remember you just giving me just very sound advice, and from that advice I was able to just let go of something that I knew probably wasn't gonna go anywhere, you know. And I remember you specifically saying to me, like, because I was like, okay, from learning from Val, I'm like, I'm gonna be direct, you know, literally asking this person, like, what are your intentions? You know, are you just wanting to be friends? Are you wanting something romantic? Because it wasn't really clear. And I'm just like, I've been in situations that aren't clearly defined, and there's no fruit in that, you know. And I'm like, I don't want to be in another unfruitful situation. And so I was like, okay, I asked the person, like, so what do you want? And I got back like a lot of things, but it still wasn't like clear. But I was like, well, okay, like, at least I asked. And they didn't really like say no that they did, and they said that I was like, okay, I pieced together an answer. I'm like, okay, so that means that they do want to be in a relationship, but eventually, okay, cool, I'll take it. And then just, you know, as things progressed, I just still kind of felt like insecure about where things were heading and how he felt about me. And I'm like, well, I shouldn't feel this way, and I don't want to bring it back up because I already asked, and maybe I just need to, you know, hang on to that. And I remember you telling me, like, the purpose of you asking your question wasn't just to ask it. The purpose was for you to get an answer, and you didn't get an answer. So you should ask again. I'm like, yeah, again, if any guy is offended by you asking again, that's not somebody you want to waste your time on, you know. And I just had addressed it with him again. I was like, you know what, like, I feel like I'm the one pursuing you, and I don't really like that, you know. And we didn't really have a conversation that went well about it, and things ended. I was like, oh, that happened fast. Okay, well, at least I didn't find out like a year later, you know, or like 2 years later. But it's like, it just, what he's saying works, because I tried it and the guy disappeared. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
No,
I think it's about, I think that helps because it allows the guy to see where you are, and you're able to see where he is. There's nothing wrong with the guy if you guys are on the same page.
Yeah.
Where you were just not looking for what he was looking for.
exactly.
So
I think he said that too. It's like,
Yeah,
I think you're looking for something more serious. I'm like, I am, you know.
That's the clear defining part. And the other important thing that we've learned is don't define your own answer. Let him answer the question. So a lot of the times I tend to kind of, when I get confused with the answer, when I don't understand exactly what a person means, I try to piece the answer together. And that's not their, that may not be their answer. That could be, but that may not be their answer. So it's good to look for an answer that's as direct as possible. So if I'm asking a question and the answer doesn't make sense according to the question, I'll ask the question in another way in the same conversation. So I'm not going back there piecing together my own answers. So directly ask and look for direct answers is what worked for us. And a lot of aspect of my relationship, our relationship, is not only to define the relationship, but to also any other thing that we complications that we may reach is to directly ask what we're looking for and to look for direct answers. So to strive towards giving a direct answer.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of being directness. It's like, this is a lot of really like direct.
Honesty.
If I had $1 for every time you guys said direct right now, we'd have like $10. But I guess that's like the key. But it really is, you know, because all this like ambiguity, because it's like, oh, I don't want to like put pressure on the situation. It's just like, it's just a waste of time.
It really
is a waste of time when you could just be like, hey, I like you. Okay, you don't feel the same, cool. Or I like you like me, are you ready for this? Okay, you are? Cool, let's go towards this. And so it's just like, yeah, you guys just got in and got out. Like, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Boom,
I think
let's
it
do
also has to, like, I think we're both like, I think Daggy has like strong leadership kind of personality and a strong presence, and I think I do too in different ways. So I think for us it's just like, we know that our time is valuable, our purpose is valuable, and we're gonna make sure, like, you know, there's no ambiguity. Like, we can talk about things as they're coming up. And then, yeah, just being honest, you know, in our relationship has been really helpful. And striving for that, I think, yeah, I've definitely encouraged that. I know for some personalities, this can feel hard because you're not very direct, or you feel like, what if they think? For me, I've been very intentional about, even if something that I say, I always say it in a loving way, you know, but if I'm concerned about something, I always tell Daggy about it. And one of the things that I've noticed is strengthen our relationship is that I know that no matter what I tell him, he's always been very supportive. I've always tried to frame it in the best way, and I feel like we always have talked to each other with respect and love. And that's fostered an environment for us where we know that no matter what we have to talk to each other about, we're always going to support one another and love each other. Even if at the moment we're disagreeing, we know God is going to help us come to a place of clarity, you know. So it's been very helpful for us. And yeah. That's
really good. Okay, so the next question is, how did you know Val was God's will for you? What is God's will? Because like, I don't want to just assume everybody watching this video is a believer and knows what it is that we mean when we say God's will. Like, can you like first talk about God's will, and how did you know that she was God's will for you?
Okay, God's will.
Yeah. Tell us who God is. No, I'm joking. Big metaphysical question. I know, but like, if you're explaining it to like a little kid, like, because it's like, when you say things like, oh, I will do this, I will go there, it's like, we have our own will. And as I answer my own question, I'm gonna stop because you can answer.
Okay, I can run from that, from what you kind of
I set it up
took
for
the
you.
direction.
Yeah.
God's will. So when I
I just find it so funny because I know how Daggy's mind thinks a little bit, and I know he's just like, he needs time to usually process things.
Like,
so right now I feel like his brain is going into like, how do I answer this super fast? Because I usually think about things like this, and me and Rasma usually just go with the flow.
Like, so like when if you think about ice cream and then God,
we usually say what's on top of our head.
It together.
And I know Daggy usually, he just slowly, because he doesn't like just saying things. So I know right now it's kind of asking him to like say something that
is
he
the
has
world flat, or is it? No, I'm joking. do you
I don't know, babe.
we can talk about that.
Shall we talk about flat Earth first and lead into God's will?
Yeah.
So I look at God's will as a direction.
Okay.
So
I don't know where to put my arm, but it's getting tired. I'm like, what do I do? Sorry, go.
Okay.
I wonder, like, how long you've been thinking about that.
For a good while. I don't know if you felt like my hand.
I've been hearing your nails. I'm like,
I'm like, oh my god, my arm's getting tired over here. But
so I look at it in a type of direction. So if we're talking about it from a perspective of spiritual people, or people who are pursuing God, but not only getting pursued by God, but who are pursuing God, I look at it in a direction. I firmly believe that I have the will to take any direction that I want in my life. being God's will is actively saying no to the very first direction that comes up. Not going into the direction that comes up first or that may seem great without praying about it and confirming with God. That's for me, that's what God's will is. A lot of the times it's proven to be difficult. A lot of the times I have found myself in a difficult situations because I was like, you know what, this is what I feel in my heart that God wants me to do. A lot of the times you have your own specific way of understanding it and hearing from God. And that's what makes it a bit confusing, is because how I hear what God's will is for my life may be drastically different from how you hear your own will according to God. So we all have practices on how we hear God and how we understand what God is telling us, or how we perceive what the will of God for our life is. And that is specific to each person. So it's not definable at every aspect. You cannot define it in a general umbrella term and say, this is what God's will is for you and for you and for you. You know? So how I understand God's will, or how I hear from God, is specifically to me. And that's how I understand it. I feel, a lot of the times you have a measurement in your heart. You know, some things you get disturbed by, some things you feel peace by, and a lot of the times we hear about that. And to me, how I found out that this was God's will, this relationship was God's will, is because I prayed about it. I spent time with God, and I was like, is this what you want me to do? Because I know that, again, we all have a purpose in this world. And some people make it their purpose to find out that purpose, and the time ends. And some people align with the will of God and find that purpose, and they run with it. And I'm striving to be that guy, who aligns himself in the will of God, which I truly believe for myself, and finding, running with the purpose that God has given me. And a lot of the times relationships are the biggest breakers of that purpose. So if you get into the wrong relationship, or because you're kind of dealing with another person, and you're giving yourself to the other person. So if you're not really confirming that person is for you, or that's God's will for you to be in that situation right now, a lot of the times we end up giving a lot more than what we should, or vice versa. So to me, it was very important to confirm that, I was operating God's will, as it is for me to come to California, as it is for me to go to school, as it is for me, a lot of the stuff that after I've decided to do this, after I've proven for myself that the reality of God, that's what I felt like the next step was. So to live in the will of God. So to me, I've proven it to myself that the reality of God, He's proven it to me, the reality of God, and after that point is the willingness to live in His will. So through that is how I pursued her. I was like, okay, I understand now this is the will of God. Now after I understand it, that's when I pursued her strongly again.
So just being prayerful about it, getting confirmation, and then it's like, okay, this is the green light to move forward, and this is somebody who's going to move forward in the direction that I'm going at the same pace that I'm trying to go at, So
bringing the spirituality back into the relationship.
Yeah.
If you're trying to lead a godly relationship, it doesn't make sense not to, counsel God.
So simple, but like so not. It's like, okay, if you're wanting to have a godly relationship, it would make sense for you to seek God's counsel about it. But I feel, and this is just my opinion, oftentimes I feel like people want good people and they don't want God. And they know that good people come with God. But it's like they don't necessarily want God, they just want good. You know what I mean? So it's like it may be a good person, and like a good situation, but the relationship doesn't bear fruit because they don't bring God into it, you know, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the awesome part about free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we get to choose what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
God is not gonna
It's true.
unless you have the unless you give him permission, he's
Mhm.
not gonna intrude you
That's true.
and say no.
You can't have this person. Yeah.
That's the concept of free will, is the fact that he can choose to find good people, and a lot of people find success
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship.
Even that aren't believers. People
Yeah.
like, well, so only Christians are gonna have good marriage. That's not
Yeah.
true.
It
There's
does.
a lot of people who get married that aren't Christians and have
And
good marriages.
how brilliant and happy and all of that included. But as a godly person, because that's the perspective that we're talking to,
Mm-hmm.
is finding that specific purpose that you're called for,
Mm-hmm.
and what God says that your purpose is. And if you're talking from that perspective, it becomes really important to seek God in the advice of who you are.